Good morning, everybody, and thank you for being here. This show is called What is the Positive? With a big question mark after it. And I'm going to say a few things, and then I'll introduce my peeps in the green room, and a little bit we'll talk about who they are and what they do. But I'm going to say a few things first, and I'm going to lose a few people upon this opening statement. But I think if people watch the replay, they're going to say, why didn't I sit in on this? So I accept the fact that up front that people don't necessarily believe the same philosophies that I do. But if you've known me for a year of Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties and you're following me there, this is the this is the thought and the spirit and the brain going on behind Smarties. What I'd rather be doing other than the Smarties. So I'm stepping up myself to another level, and I'm exposing myself to the world in this fashion, and that's what is the positive is all about. So what I had to say is that there are a couple things that I think are misunderstood about life, and one of them is that sickness, conflict, and poverty are actually a choice in life. Now, that's only one of these statements that is going to rouse some things. If I went off with all the philosophies that I believe, that you would say, yeah, well, Roland's a really nice guy, but he's way out there. And I accept the fact that I'm way out there, and I'm okay with that. But I do think that being way out there allows me to be extremely positive, where a lot of people see the problems and are in, deflated or disempowered or unplugged or paralyzed. I take action and can keep on moving. And it's all about the attitude that I start with. So I'm going to share some of that today, and we're going to talk about it eventually. But we're not going to get around to solving why there's sickness, conflict, and poverty, but we will be addressing it eventually in this show. Here's another one. Here's number two. You can heal yourself. Now, I believe this to my core. I believe that if a person vibrates in the vibration of a healing aspect, that whether their healing comes in a miracle, a doctor, a medicine, an herb, or a therapy, or what it is, something will come, but you have to be in the healing consciousness and the healing spirit before the healing happens itself. That's another one. People are going to say, well, I'm a victim, I've got cancer, or I've got this, I've got that. I'm going to lose people, but I'm going to say it. I don't care what you say you have, you don't have to own it. And that no matter where you are, you have a way, an opportunity, and the power to reverse what's going on if you don't want it. So we're going to teach people how to focus on what they want and not what they don't want. And that's going to be a part of this. But in the meantime, the concept of you can heal yourself is something that I believe, and therefore part of the foundation of what this program is all about. Now, if you can heal yourself and that you can steer yourself away from sickness, conflict, and poverty, that leads us to like, well, what the heck? What is my option other than to deal with these things that I see as my reality? And here it is. The world, the entire universe, and if you want to look at it from like God said or God did, that's fine. I believe that from one standpoint. I also believe that there's a universal order and that there's a hierarchy of consciousness, and if you want to call that God, I think it's the same thing. I think when one religion calls him one name and another religion calls him something else, and the atheists believe that, all we're doing is we're different groups of people with different types of thought describing the universe as we see it. But no matter what the opinions are, the universe is what the universe is. And no matter how we describe it or how we change the actual description, it doesn't change what the universe is. So what it is we are groups of people all trying to understand more and more about what the universe is. And that's the process of life. So yeah, okay. I guess I can step down off my pedestal for just a minute and take a deep breath. I
It
had a
was getting
stroke.
good to you.
I had a stroke a few years ago, and it caused me to not breathe normally. And
Uh,
so I'm working on that, and I'm learning how to take deeper breaths, and I'm healing gradually, and that's part of my creation from the point that I am. But I wanted to also make it clear, this program, especially today, we are not going to answer the questions like why are there wars everywhere, or why are babies born blind. Now, mind you, if somebody asked me that, I could sit here and answer it, but it'd probably take me a few days. Because to reach that deep in the understanding, we're talking about not just a deep philosophical concept, but we're talking about absorbing a lot of information that is relative to the spiritual view of life. And people, when they come to this show, I guarantee you that 90% of the people coming to watch this are going to be presented from the physical view of being human. And the physical view of being human is much, much different than a spiritual consciousness life. They're two different things. But people will think, well, gee, how do I become enlightened? How do I be that spiritual consciousness that's above all? Well, if you actually merge with the Jesus consciousness, you disappear and float away. You would dissipate into nothingness because you would be part of the universe once again. But the thing to remember is that we are human beings now. There's a reason for us being here. We chose to be here, and our jobs are to be expressing the universe, expressing ourselves as a piece of that universe right here and now as human beings. So we're meant to be here expressing as human beings. That's our job. And so that's what I'm doing here. And that's hopefully what we'll encourage you to do too. How's everybody? Does anyone have anything that they just have to shout out or bark at? You know, let's introduce the people in the green room. I'm being very informal about this whole thing because it's kind of a research session to find out what the conversation can be around these subjects that I'm bringing up. So, first of all, I think everybody knows you, Molly. Let's introduce you to first and give you a chance to tell people. And it doesn't have to be the Google lady. This time we can say, who are you in the midst of all that?
Sure. Well, my name is Molly Geiger. I'm located in Jacksonville, Florida. I run a digital agency that we do website design, development, graphic design, search engine optimization, Google AdWords, so on and so forth. I can say for me, being positive has been a key component in my life. Just like everyone else, I have my own problems and set of circumstances that I've gone through. A lot of people don't know this about me, but I've actually been in 7 car accidents. And yeah, I've been in 7 car accidents. And I think if you're able to be in that many car accidents and be rehabilitated, back injuries and that type of thing, that just shows that that person, you have to stay positive. It's almost a strategy that you have to implement in your life in order to move forward. And you made a point earlier about just keep going. And I think that is a key part of my strategy anyways, is no matter what comes across my desk or what happens to me personally, I just keep going. It's been that strategy and being positive that has, kind of guided me to where I am today. That I participate with Google on several different platforms. And honestly, if you had told me, even 3 years ago, what I've done in the last 3 years, I would have said, no way. 3 years ago, I'm just a website designer in Jacksonville, Florida. There was nothing, nothing special about what it was I did, but it was through being positive, being encouraging for other people, celebrating their successes alongside with them, that I've achieved what I have, which I'm a ambassador in the Google Partners community. I'm a Google Small Business Advisor. I'm a rising star in the Hangouts Help Forum. I'm a rising star in the Google Partners community, and I'm actually on my way to becoming a top contributor. And I mean, honestly, in a million years, I never would have thought that would happen to me. But I think it. And most recently, I was nominated, and I won the Google Partners Most Supportive Member Award. And it's just been that strategy that I've used to be positive, to help people, to share some words of encouragement, and just be there for people. So
So one of the reasons that you're with Smarties is that I'm just a very, very lucky guy, and you would be there. But when the reason that you're here on this show today is that you are a perfect example of the couple terms. Perseverance is one, and spirit is another. Because you're so positive, you presented that line in my hangout the other day, our hangout, and you said the moment you quit is the moment you lose. And so you're a perfect example of not quitting. Just keep on doing. And by the way, we're going to have to compare notes sometime. I've been in 15 accidents. One of them
good
includes
grief.
flying off the side of a mountain and going 75 miles an hour in the back of a pickup truck. So,
Goodness.
yeah, it's going to be fun to talk about, but or maybe not. But anyway, thank you for being with us, Molly, and I cherish your knowledge. And one of the reasons, additionally, that you're here is you are a wealth of resource, of ideas. And in the practical world, in the internet practical world, and probably in life in general, you are a wonderful resource. So that's the reason you're here today.
Great,
And I
thanks.
know that your spirit is to help people. I think you're going to say, God, that was really, really, really fun, and I'm going to go back again. So that's the reason you're here. Now let's introduce George. George Mycroft is a friend of mine that I met recently, and he has just been bubbling over in my mind of just common sense and thought and quotes, and he's got this mind like a steel trap, and I just really want everyone to know who George is. Go ahead.
Roland, if you knew how rusty the steel trap was compared to what it used to be.
Okay, well, steel things can be refined and oiled and greased, and
WD-40 is my friend.
so George, why don't you give everybody an idea of some information about yourself?
Oh my goodness me. Well, as you can probably tell, I'm based in Tennessee. You get that from the accent, of course. Um, I actually was raised in the UK and went away to sea when I was 16 years old. I was sea-based for 14 years, and then I came ashore as a ship's pilot. I used to park the big super tankers. I did that for 20 years. Retired, moved to Tennessee from Florida. What else have we got? I lived off-grid on a 50-acre homestead that I created the renewable energy system. I lived there for 10 years. And now I'm living in a little place called Las Casas near Murfreesboro, which is southeast of Nashville in Tennessee. I guess I'm a world traveler and I'm a life traveler. So I'm here as a human being to offer what I've got and to be the best service I can be, pretty much. Excuse me.
Yeah, and you pretty much basically described why you're here. You're in the vein of being of service to people. You have a wealth of knowledge and practical awareness to apply. And of the conversations that I've had with you, it just it astounds me how succinct you are bringing up the key points and the most important things. And the consistently the things that you exemplify are things that I think and believe. So thank you for very much for being here. And now to introduce Carlo Savio. Carlo, how long have I known you? Maybe a month or two?
No, well, no, I guess it seems like at least a lifetime, but whatever.
Well, when the reality strikes, we're going to realize that we're old friends from many, many generations and many, many lifetimes, if you believe in that sort of thing, which I do.
Yes. Can I have the $5 back?
Yeah, I'll get back
In one of my lives, I lent you $5.
That's funny. No, Carlo is he's just a deeply spiritual guy. He speaks on a different level than a lot of people. So many people are caught up in the day-to-day life stuff, what's going on, my problems, my problems, my problems. And Carlo has a way of reaching down deep and coming up with a perspective that is one sidestep aside from the physical life world. He understands things from a spiritual sense, and he's got a lot of great advice just by expressing what he sees as the reality of the world. So he's here sharing these thoughts with us, and we're going to welcome his comments as we keep on going. Okay, and now for Barbara Quick. People are going to wonder, and a lot of people know who you are. And the reason I thought of you first, now that you're here, the reason you're here, it takes on a different shape. But originally, the thing that I was thinking was, you are simply the brightest light that I know. You're going through so many dark spots in your life, and yet you shine. And I challenge anyone out there to tell me that they got some kind of a negative bad vibe or disagree with something that Barbara Quick has said in the comments, in the hangouts, and in any interaction at all. She's just very, very positive. And I think that she could not exist in her life if it wasn't positive. So Barbara, give us a little background about you and what your life is all about.
Well, I live in Northern California in Paradise, town of Paradise, and actually just outside the town limits. I goofed, and on the insurance papers it says, "Do you live within the town limits?" And I put yes, because I thought we did, and then I found out a month or so later from somebody else, no, we live a block and a half outside the town limits. Oh, well. Life is kind of like that sometimes. I've got a daughter and her husband that we watch over. I was told one time years ago that I was the family matriarch by a neighbor. And he saw that in me, I guess. I was probably in my 40s at the time, and he saw that in me then, and I guess I still am, because I'm the family warrior. I try and take care of everybody. Don't always succeed, but I try. I've got a husband who has health problems, pretty severe ones, and like Parkinson's and dementia and
Wow.
many inabilities because of those. And neuropathy, feet and legs, and now fingers even. And so I have to do more and more. And I just have always had this feeling that, I mean, if you dwell in the negative, that's all you're going to live. And so I dwell in the positive part of my life, and the negative exists, but I choose not to dwell there. And I guess
Yes.
that's kind of my story.
That's the beginning of your story, Barbara.
Yep.
And you have yet to tell your entire story, as all of us do. And part of this is that life in general, beyond this physical world, beyond the spiritual world, for all I know, is an ongoing thing, and it never stops. So if we start thinking about, well, gee, I've got a limited number of years here, and I'm going to pass away, I'm going to grow old, I'm going to shrivel up and die, that's exactly what you're going to express in this lifetime. However, in spite of the fact that we are all growing old, we have the opportunity to choose what we express from here on out. And my premise involving the group here and what we're doing in this hangout is to say, we are here to express and to choose how we express. And furthermore, when we choose how we express, we determine our future experience. Now, I just said a mouthful between the things that I claimed when I opened up the show and what I just said right now. The choice is ours. We have the power over our own lives. Now, if some people sitting out there don't have to believe that to gain some aspect of what they can do to improve their lives, which is really what the show is all about. But just to describe the fundamentals, I believe that all of us, each and everyone who will ever watch this video, I believe that we can change our lives. We have the power. I think that that's part of what, okay, let's say what God gave us upon creation was a heaven on earth. Not a guarantee that someday if you're a good little boy and when you go to heaven and you're standing before the pearly gates, and if you qualify, you get to go into heaven. I don't believe that for a second. I really don't. So that's another controversial thing that I'll be jumped on for. And I don't really care, because the bottom line is we are given heaven on earth upon our birth, upon our existence, upon the universe conception. The universe, before we even became humans, we had heaven on earth. That's what it all is. And we're here expressing ourselves, and which means God says you can express yourself any way you want. And some people express themselves in hate, anger, war, and some people express themselves in sickness and conflict or poverty. But I want to make it clear that I believe we have a choice. So while we're doing this, I want to acknowledge a few people who are here, because I've been rambling on and not paying attention to the people. But hopefully Jeremy Murphy is here with us, and maybe Kristen Drysdale. And let's see, if you happen to be showing up, please sound off and let us know. Okay, cool, Jeremy. Glad you're here. And Sheila Strover, I'm so glad that you showed up. I think you're another one of those very, very bright lights. And you should. I'll get you on the show too eventually, because everyone needs to see your light and realize that's why I like Sheila so much. It's the same reason why we like Barbara Quick so much, because they are a shining light. One of the things that we will approach on the more practical level in this series is identifying terminology that we use to describe ourselves, and discussing the brain working behind the attachment we have to those terms. Let me give you an example and see what you guys think of this. We'll just make this a little side conversation for a second. But basically, inspiration trumps motivation always. Now, the reason I say this is that motivation to me possesses some element of negativity. Why is that? Because if you have to be motivated to do something, that's something outside of yourself giving you a little shove. In other words, you have to find something that makes me want this thing more. Or someone else on the side is going to have to urge you forward, like a coach or a parent or somebody urging you forward and say, come on, come on, come on. And they're motivating you. The difference is, okay, and Molly, you're next if you have a story about motivation. Now, the concept that I have is that inspiration comes from within. Inspiration. Motivation comes from the outside. Inspiration comes from the inside. And the good news that I have for people is we can all find our inspiration. But in the meantime, we'll have a conversation of the differences between motivation and inspiration, and Molly has a story.
Yeah, I have a story about motivation. It goes back a couple of years where when I became an ambassador in the partners community, I was really surprised, and what led me to that was being motivated to become an ambassador. It was something that I remember. I was sitting in my office one night, and it was late at night, and I was in the Google Partners community, and I was just looking at some of the documentation that they have, and one of them was a document, an official Google Doc that listed the ambassadors, the current ambassadors anyways. And I was sitting looking at that document, I'm thinking, wow, wouldn't that be something if I could somehow figure out how I could become an ambassador? And I just sat and thought, what is it that set these people apart from me? Why were they chosen to be ambassadors? And I decided right then and there that I was going to focus my efforts on trying to accomplish that mission. And so for me, that was a big motivating factor to get out in the partners community and start answering questions and helping people be positive, share interesting articles about what it is I do, digital marketing, and just overall try and inspire myself to do that. And what happened, what resulted in my efforts is I wound up becoming a spotlighted partner. And when you become a spotlighted partner in the community, Google actually sends you some type of dessert as a reward. And you get this really nice write-up. The manager at the Googleplex, they ask you to do a write-up for yourself and kind of describe, what you do, some of your likes and hobbies and things of that nature. And then they send you, in my particular case, I got a cake. I got a cake from Google with the Google logo on it. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. You don't get a cake from Google every day. And I thought, man, if I'm going to get rewarded like this, then I really am going to focus my efforts on really attain that goal of becoming an ambassador. And so I just kept it, kept going in there, kept answering questions about AdWords and SEO and a bunch of digital subjects. And it was probably a couple months later I got the email from Jennifer, who was the Google Partners Manager at Google at the time. And she says, Molly, we see what you're doing. We really appreciate it. You share a lot of insights. We'd like to invite you to become a Google Partners Ambassador. And I literally sat there for like 20 minutes just rereading this email over and over and over. And I was like, really? This is really happening? I finally, after, I think it was probably about 5 or 6 months worth of work, but I'm like, wow, I finally accomplished what I set out to do. And I got my picture taken, and I'm on the official document now. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to keep going. I said, even though I've become an ambassador, I'm going to keep running with it. And it was shortly thereafter I found out that the Google small business community, they were ramping things up, and they handpicked a few of the ambassadors to become, and they invited us to become business advisors based on, the different things we did. And I've really just kind of kept the same motivation up for about the last 2.5 years, and it's resulted in me becoming a part of a program that Google has for people who have a lot of product-related knowledge called the Top Contributor Program. And essentially what it is when Google sees an individual out there talking about certain products like AdWords or analytics or YouTube or whatever, they make you what they call a rising star. And what a rising star is, it's somebody that's on their way to becoming a top contributor. Now you might say, well, what's the big deal about being a rising star? Well, right now in the world, there's only about 225 rising stars. So it's a pretty small, closed group. And from that, if you continue to get out there and help people, you'll become a top contributor. And right now in the entire world, there's about probably 550 top contributors. And what's really interesting about becoming a top contributor is they fly you out. They have a summit every year in October. And they actually, Google pays for your flight, they pay for your hotel, they pay for your food, they pay for everything. And you go out there and you get to network with all these other top contributors. And so I really have attained something that I never thought in a million years would happen to me. What I find the most privileged thing of being in the top contributor program is the legacy of it, meaning even after you go and you pass away, you always will be known as a Google top contributor. So I think in terms of motivation, just from a little effort in being persistent and consistent and continue to try to help people, Google actually rewards people who do that. So I just wanted to share that story with you, that because of being motivated to attain a goal and being persistent and continuing to help people, that you just never know what could happen to you.
That's a great story, and I wanted to distinguish a couple things that you said. First of all, the nature from where you're coming from was always based on helping people and being of service. Now that's a real important thing, and I think if it doesn't factor into, and I'm talking to everybody out there, if service to others does not fit into the scheme of what you're trying to do, you're already missing a major component in the building blocks of your success. So that's one thing. The second thing is that you definitely an exemplary member of the perseverance squad, but in your process you emerged from motivation and you merged into motivation. I can tell by the way you're smiling when you talk about the stuff that you're into. Now, not everybody's into analytics. Not everybody's into data. And so you're in an extremely unique spot. When other people see it, gee, I wish I could do what Molly does, they're going to immediately think of, but there's no way I like numbers as much as she does. There's no way I like dealing with online programs and software. There's no way I like dealing with the internet. Well, guess what? Then this is not the way you're going to express yourself the way Molly did. But the motivation that she showed that emerged into the inspiration that sustains her now. She's extremely inspired. And that is what we're seeking to bring out in every single person, what inspires them. So in a few moments, we're going to move on to Barbara quick. And also I had a possible subject that might directly include Jeremy Murphy in a moment here. But I would really like to hear from George, and I think Carlo maybe is ready to go. So let's ask him to express himself for a few minutes.
No, I'm just a spectator.
No, you're not. Well, your microphone was on, so I thought maybe we could get you to
Oh,
go. So
that's no. I'm sorry. No, George, please.
go ahead,
I'm
George.
just enjoying this.
Would you like to comment on just the things that you're hearing and just to basically assessment of the conversation is fine. I'm
Well,
going to put him on the spot and we're going to
oh,
wait for him. By the way,
who, me?
while
Oh, George.
George, and while we're waiting for George to unmute his microphone and to join me in the conversation, um, this session today is not for refined publications so we can say, oh yeah, that was a great hangout and they cover this and that. This is as much a research project today as anything, because I'm presenting these ideas that I haven't really spoken with other people publicly and live online before. I haven't had this conversation. These are deep things that I believe, and I think on a regular basis from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. I live in the midst of this state of mind. And so it's not a matter of like, let me put my spiritual cap on for a while, and let me put my awareness cap for being of service to others and doing a free hangout so I can just give away this wealth of knowledge. I'm not sitting there doing that. I just am this way. And I don't think there are too many people like that. I think Molly's all about herself. I think that she's genuine and authentic. As a matter of fact, I think that everyone in this green room right now is genuine and authentic, and that's why you're here. But there are many more people who are like that, and Sheila Strover and Jeremy, you're really good examples of the very thing. And so beyond that presence is how do we share our ideas and what do we think and share the thoughts and help people expand their awareness so they actually make different decisions that improve their lives. So anyway, George, are you ready to chime in with us?
Oh, absolutely. I'm an inveterate note taker, so I've got a little pad in front of me. When people say things, I stick
I
notes
knew
down.
it.
One of the things that my partner and I, Shira Hunt, have been doing recently is reading Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. I highly recommend it. It's a remarkable book. This guy was a concentration camp survivor. I think he was in 4 concentration camps over a period of 4 years. Amazing man. He actually created his own form of psychoanalysis called logotherapy. But I recommend reading the book, A Man's Search for Meaning. But he introduced me to a saying by Friedrich Nietzsche: "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And that to me is a very important thing. Roland, you sent me a link to a guy called Kelly Cease, who had a woman on stage who was bemoaning the fact that she was going to be very shortly made homeless. And she had a lot of skills, but she was so focused on the what was wrong, and she was stuck in the how. He turned her around within 30 minutes to look for the why, and she just lit up. This woman just changed. I mean, she lost decades in her face. It was remarkable to see. So that expression of Nietzsche's, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how," I think applies right the way across life. Because from what I see, suffering, is a perception, but it gives us the opportunity to choose how we are going to present in life as a human being. And that, to me, is a lot of it is what we're here for. We don't see it that way because we're not raised that way. We see it as pain and bad and all these negative statements, the beliefs that we hold. But to me, it's just an opportunity to be our humanness and express our unique individuality. And as regards getting old, Barbara, you can cancel your subscription to Old. I got rid of mine decades ago. It's not necessary. Just tell them you don't want any more copies.
Yeah, amen to that. I'm glad, George. I knew that you were here for a reason. You prove that every time you speak. And the video that you talk about, Kyle Cease. His name is Kyle, by the way. And cease as in cease and desist but his name doesn't go that far. But Kyle Cease is someone you want to look up on YouTube and observe what it is that that guy says. He's really, I mean, someday I hope that he says, I really want to be on Roland's show, What is the Positive? Because the guy is very positive. He's got a great attitude. And what he did was he took this lady who was out there. She was about to be homeless. She was about to basically cease to exist, and you know, in the public world or the public eye. And basically, when she walked out of the auditorium, she was able to tell her story to 1,000 people and got leads from 100 of them with business cards and requests for her services regarding the things that she had as skill sets that she possessed and could not make work in her life. She walked out of the auditorium with 100 contacts of people who wanted to deal with her directly. And that's remarkable, because what would you do with 100 contacts immediately in your wheelhouse of the profession that you're inclined to give to people in the first place?
You say,
So
thank you, universe.
thank you, universe. So what is this exemplary of? It's exemplary that nothing is what it seems to be, but your reality is whatever you make it. And this lady had created a version of herself that had no opportunities, no place to live, and no future. And she walked out with 100 clients, or 100 opportunities to have clients. Now, if you had 100 qualified leads of people who are trying to get in touch with you, how many of those opportunities could you turn into business contracts? I mean, quite a few, I'd say, you know. So that was something, that's an example of how your world can change in one 30-minute period. And so if it happens faster than that, like 5 seconds, they call those miracles. Okay, and everyone says, well, it can't possibly happen to me, so we're just going to have to accept the fact that miracles exist, and that's what changed my life. Thank God for a miracle. But we don't worry, I mean, we don't understand or think about how that miracle happened. Well, my mother said something to me when I was 15 years old. She said, everything happens in the spiritual world first. Spiritual precedes the physical. And so basically that implies when something happens to you, if you get a cut on your finger, you had got the cut on your spiritual finger first. That happened before the actual cut that we recognize as human beings. So really, what happened to us happened in the spiritual world first. Well, what is that occurrence exactly? That occurrence is some change in the vibration of your being that allows you to cut your finger. And people look at a cut on the finger and they say, oh, that's punishment. Well, it may not be punishment. It's a change concept, and it's a purification, and it's an actual expression of what your spiritual self is going through, but you're not being punished. Let's kind of get that out of the way first. And before we move on to what I was going to do, bringing up Barbara here, Carlo, was there anything that you wanted to add to the thinking there?
No, I'm enjoying your discourse.
Okay. Well, you know that I can go on for days. So
I'm here. Yeah.
Gee, I've got a clan listening to me ramble. So anyway, one of the things that we're gonna do, we with 20 minutes left, we may never get around to what I wanted to address with Jeremy, but Barbara, you know, what we want to do with this series, and we'll probably refine the way we deal with it, the way we present, the things that we talk about, and what we're going to develop as a process for this show based on the feedback from the people. So if you have something to contribute, if the people out there who are watching would like to say, gee, you should have done this or should have done that, we are very open to what you have to say. And the next week, when we do this on Tuesday again, tentatively on Tuesday again, we're going to progress forward and try a few things and experiment and see what we can develop into a process so that every single week we can help people. So I kind of like burdened Barbara with the concept of you are our subject today. So in twofold you're our subject. because as we expressed and we showed at the beginning of the program, you are a very bright light. When people think of you, and I have access to about 3 or 4 communities, all of whom know you. But when they think of you, they say, "Oh yeah, Barbara Quick. She's such a cool person. She's a lovely lady. She's got a great personality. I like what she posts. She's always so positive. She's very uplifting. She lifts everybody up." So that's the general status of what people think and how they receive you. But the reality of your situation, and I use that term loosely because the word reality is a very, very flexible concept. And when two people see the same thing, their realities are different, no matter what, because they're two different people. No two people have the same reality, no two people have the same vision or the same awareness or the same image in their mind when they look at any one thing. So everyone's different. We have to accept that. But what we can do is come up with some common thread of agreement in life that these things are good. Yes, we all agree. These things are bad. Yes, we all agree. And there are degrees or essences of all those things that will differ among all the individual people who are thinking about the same subject. We all receive it differently. We all interpret it differently. Therefore, we put out a very different energy in the midst of that. So, Barbara, what is the untold story behind you is that, for instance, your son-in-law, your daughter and son-in-law, not only do they each have physical issues, but they've been riddled with experiences in their lives. I mean, your stepson got held up by gunpoint. He's been in a car accident. He's got a heart condition. He's got brain issues. He's in a wheelchair, such as I am, and had strokes. This guy has been riddled with problems, and this is just one aspect of Barbara's life. Then her daughter has different things too. They both have dental problems. She and her husband that I just described to you live in a house that they just recently got electricity in because it's been shut off for months. And they've been cooking on a camp stove on their porch. They have no light. Their light is candles. Their support from the government has been delayed. They've had so many multiple problems. It's like everything that you could think of happening, we were used to joke about it and say, God, what else can happen to these poor people? Well, these are the burdens that Barbara supports on a daily basis in her life. Let's take a step further. Her husband's got dementia and Alzheimer's. Is that what it is?
Dementia and Parkinson's.
Parkinson's. Well, can you imagine two worse things to happen to a loving couple who are still physically decently surviving? And she deals with this. Her husband forgets who she is. Husband forgets what room the bedroom is in or how to get to the kitchen. They have a dog that's getting old. I mean, the dog is, a loving dog, but Barbara is a caretaker for everybody. She has to watch everybody. Not only that, let's take it a step further to express the story of Barbara. She has a physical condition. You don't mind me telling this, right?
No, that's fine.
Okay. Barbara has a physical condition with her neck due to, I think it's an accident or a condition, and you can describe it more.
Like starting from the time I was a toddler on, too many neck and back injuries.
So the problem results in a condition where literally she cannot hold her head up. It falls forward, and her muscles will not allow her, in some cases, to pick her head up and stand normally. So she's got to wear a brace around her neck just to stand there and look at you. Okay?
Well, I can hold my head up, but it takes like 100 times the effort that it should.
Sure.
It's like
that's an incredible thing. Just dealing with this one thing, just like momentarily erase everything happening to you. Just that one thing would put such a damper and hassle on your life.
Hey, Roland.
It's amazing, the whole concept.
Hey, Roland.
Yes.
There's one thing that I'm hearing about Barbara. If anybody's got a right to hold her head up, she has.
Well put. And she really has a right to hold her head up. So let's deal with her condition is what it is. Sorry, I'm adjusting myself here. Uh, I've got a leg that doesn't like to cooperate sometimes.
You get to
Okay.
a point where these things happen and you either deal with them or you don't, you know. And so when I go out and about, I do wear the neck brace because I feel less conspicuous with the neck brace on than I do if I'm running around at the market like this, you know. So
Yeah. Okay, so in effect, what we have here, if anybody's seen the Kyle Cease video, we would take it from here and say, oh my God, it's like Barbara's story starts to look like and be reminiscent of this lady that was on Kyle's stage, where we talked about has uh, home problems, physical problems, all kinds of financial difficulties, and this is her status. Well, Barbara's is not like that, but it is definitely as impeding as as this other lady exposed. So now, if we think the next stage, and if I was Kyle Cease, I would know exactly what to say, maybe. But I would say Barbara's already very good at being able to place things on the shelf and not worry about it for a small period of time, where she's able to smile and exchange ideas with a cluster of people in a hangout on air and be perfectly positive. And she's got that ability to do so. But
Roland,
she
can I
also,
jump in?
yes,
I keep going back to that Nietzsche comment. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how. I'm curious to know what Barbara's why is.
go ahead, Barbara.
um, I plan to be 100. So I have a while to make it to 100. My daughter goes around every time I have her with me, take her shopping or whatever, because they don't have a vehicle. And she'll tell everybody, my mom's 82. Would you believe she's 82 years old? Which is like, after a
Well,
while.
it is kind of difficult to believe you're 82. For one thing, you used to blog in these communities and prolifically blog, and people were like, "Wow, that lady can really write." And so that's how you impress people, not the fact that you're an elderly grandmother and that you're having difficulties or whatever your challenges are. They all just knew you from a prolific writer that they enjoyed and loved, and so that was their impression of who Barbara is. That's who Barbara is. But there's so much more behind that. So it's a really good question, um, George. And I would say the part of the why is that Barbara is polarized positively in the first place, and she really loves her family. I mean, she does everything for her family. Um, Another woman, and I hope I'm not speaking of you, and I might be, but another woman would have walked away from the family. They would have said, "I can't deal with this. I'm not gonna take care of a guy, my husband, while he loses his mind and becomes a burden to me for the last 5 years. I'm not gonna do it. So I'm out of here." And so many people would have abandoned ship. And I've abandoned a few ships myself. And I've walked away from situations in my life, jobs, people, and whatever, persons, places, and things that I decided, well, no, I'm not up for this. But in Barbara's situation, she's hung in there because she loves her family and she's dedicated. So I believe seriously, if she did not have this why, she couldn't maintain what she's doing. But the balance of the teeter-totter that we find Barbara in is that she's so busy taking care of everybody that she can't write the book that would put her over the top and make her some money, balance out their finances, make their living in a very improved experience. So I would ask the crowd at this point, what is the positive? And Molly, you can comment. Yes, the question is, what is the positive?
Well, I want to quickly comment before I answer that question about her conundrum about having the time. In fact, I recently came across an email that a Googler had sent to a peer, and it actually addressed that question about constantly being busy, constantly working on things or taking care of your family or running errands or whatever it is that's going on in your life. And the title of the email was, if you don't think you have time to read this email, then stop and read this email twice. And I think what she was trying to communicate, and this is actually an article, and I'll look for it. I was actually getting ready to post it to the Google Partners community. But the email addressed the fact that we all are busy. We all have things going on. We all have situations that are going on in our life. But when we have a goal like writing a book or working on a website or whatever your interests or your hobbies are, we have to make time for that. In fact, I'm a big fan of exercise. I exercise pretty much every day. But I don't do it in such a way that I go to a gym and I spend an hour and a half working out. I don't do that. I spend 10 minutes a day doing some calisthenics. And what I'm getting at in terms of her and her writing her book is if you can take just 10 minutes of your day and earmark that time to start with the outline of your book, start with the title of your book, try and give yourself that time. The terminology in emails, you're either a manager or you're a maker. Okay, a manager is somebody, their day is laid out for them, they have every microsecond of their day scheduled, and a maker is somebody who they take the time and they say, you know what, I'm a busy person, I've got a lot going on, but I'm going to take this time for me. And I have a story about this. A few years ago, I was working in corporate America, and it was a rat race. I was just wearing myself out, and I had gone to a doctor's appointment, just a general checkup, and the physician's assistant, she goes, well, how are you feeling? And I told her, I said, I just feel like I'm just go and I go and I go and I go and I go, and she goes, well, what do you do for yourself every day? And I stopped and I said, I don't do anything for myself. I don't do anything for myself. And she goes, well, I want you to try something now. I want you to take 10 minutes of your day and do something for yourself. And so for me, I decided to start exercising. And I can say that 10 minutes, even though it is only 10 minutes, is my time. And I choose to spend my time exercising because it makes me feel better. Plus, it helps my back. But going back to Barbara's situation, that's what I would recommend doing, Barbara, is just take 10 minutes. Whether it's early in the morning or late in the evening, you have to make the time for yourself.
Excellent. And thank you. That's contributory towards the proper goal. And when you take time for yourself, you empower yourself and you enable yourself, and you start connecting with your inner self that can cause and capture inspiration instead of motivating. You are highly motivated to take care of stuff. When you become inspired, you're going to find that you're able to take care of everything, and yet take that 10 minutes, or maybe the 10 minutes will turn into 30 minutes, or maybe the 30 minutes will become an hour, or an hour and a half, or maybe the afternoon that you devote to yourself and get some real work done on your book, on yourself, and you realize, wow, I just got a whole lot done. And all I did was I didn't watch Roland's Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties for one day, and suddenly I started this project, and look how far I am. So when we reallocate a few things in our life, we can start out small and it becomes something huge. And what I'd really like to see is that your inspiration leads to actually accomplishing your book, because we know that publishing your book would change your life because you already got the story to tell, and you're already a great storyteller. So if you write the story, people will read that story. I can almost guarantee, without being your manager, I can guarantee that people, I'll read it for sure. So, do we have any other comments from George or?
Yeah, I'm reminded of the story about the very wise and sage Zen master who said that everybody should meditate for at least 15 minutes every day, unless you're really, really busy, in which case you should meditate for at least 1 hour.
Good point. The key element of meditation is to silence the mental discussion that goes on. As we are human beings, we are very capable of running all these discussions in our brain all at the same time. And when we silence those things, all of a sudden our inner self, the point at which we can gain and focus on the inspiration within us, that starts to speak for us and for us. So thank you very much for that, George. That's why you're here. And
That's
Carla,
what I
any
do.
comments?
My escape from the realities, I guess, around me, my escape is the computer.
Yeah,
That's I'm the only one that uses the computer in the house, and Cliff just doesn't have an interest in the computer. And so that's where I kind of spend time that I enjoy.
good.
Even if I only see half of the emails that come in anymore, you know, they pour in, and but still, it's time that I can relax.
Right. So I think that you'll find a point at which you're sitting at your computer on a WordPad document or Word document, and you say, I'm finally inspired to flesh out this project and write this book. So I encourage you to look at that. In the meantime, get online, have fun, join us in Smarties, join us here in What is the Positive, and someday that book is going to pop right out because you're sitting at a computer ready to go.
Deciding which of the books to start with, I kind of feel like the blog rewording it into a book, I feel like is kind of a starting point, the best starting point maybe, to get my name out there as a writer, and then go from there to the other books that are a little more involved.
So you've got a starting point in your mind, you're
Yeah.
envisioning where you can begin. What would keep you from starting today?
Oh, probably if I take some of my computer time that I use.
Okay,
That's
well,
probably a good place to start.
we'll gladly and see where your inspiration leads you. So
Okay.
this is basically wrapping up an hour of our time. I mentioned the concept of possibly talking to Jeremy Murphy about what's going on. The concept, and I'm only going to touch on this, and maybe we'll hit this next week, and maybe we'll actually invite Jeremy in to be in the green room with us. Uh, I wanted to highlight a comment that he made earlier. He said, "Good afternoon," and then he said he agrees with me that we can heal ourselves holistically. And I believe that in my heart. I don't think that we have to suffer through anything. And you would say to me at this point, I'm improving, I'm getting stronger, and things are changing. By the way, I just wanted to also announce there are, and I'm not through commenting on Jeremy. By the way, thank you, Barbara. I appreciate you letting us talk about you, and hopefully we're a reason for you to increase your smile on your face. But anyway, hi Nathan, how you doing? Um, Now I've lost what I was going to say. Well, the concept is we have a few people who I was hoping could make it today, but they couldn't. In the future, we're definitely going to have Lynn Sanders and her husband, Joel Sanders, visit us and talk with us and maybe be more regular on the show. And also George's other half, and I hesitate to say, but I'm going to say it, his better half. Yeah. Okay, if I insult you, it will survive, right? Okay. But Shira is one of the brightest lights I've seen in a long time. And through Shira, I met George. And then we latched onto each other as like, oh God, we start talking about a business thing that we're doing together. And then we go off on these tangents and dig into the spiritual side of life and thought, and I love it. But Shira is Shira Hunt, who is responsible for the vibrationally sound website, and George and she run that together. And she deals with, sorry, we got conversations going in my background, really bad manners, bro. Okay, but vibrationally sound is an excellent concept for actually changing the vibration of your being and vibrating at a higher level and readjusting your vibration so you actually generate a different physical ex exemplification of what you are, who you are in the real world. In other words, it fixes your physical body, and that's something that we'll be talking about sometime. And Shira will be on next week. She's out of town right now, but she's longing to be here, and she's going to be another vital part of this conversation. So anyway, I wanted to tell you about a few people who were invited but could not make it. Also, V. Lynn Hawkins is saying that she would love to be a part of this. She couldn't make it today, but she'll probably be here next week. So the conversation will be extending. Now, back to Jeremy. Jeremy, next week I want to deal with this concept. We can talk about it in the meantime, and then we can maybe have you on the panel and extend the discussion. And the word that you brought up in your own blab probably a couple months now ago, right after which I pinged you and we talked in a private hangout. But the word that you brought up that just caught my attention, I so wanted to be there and comment, but lo and behold, I was watching the replay. And the word that you brought up was patience. And you dug into patience, and I've got some major things that I would want to say and discuss, and we'll all tackle the concept of patience together, because it brings to mind something that we want to deal with, and that patience is basically a blanket concept that we apply when we're feeling negative, when we're feeling down, when we have challenges, when we want something to happen but it's not coming along fast enough. We apply the concept of patience. So immediately saying that we need patience, or we want to employ patience or apply patience, implies that we have a negative feeling about something. So we will be addressing that next week. I appreciate people showing up and listening to what's going on here. I appreciate people making those statements, and hopefully you'll come back next week. Where do I want to take this? I want to expand the conversation, and I want to help people. So just the way we brought Barbara into the light today and told her story and talked about what she can do to maybe get started writing, hopefully the effect is that Barbara feels a little bit more encouraged to write and to write her book and to make that a success story so she can realize her own success. And you're already successful, Barbara. We want to see you reap the harvest of that success. So anyone else have some closing comments or something that you want to get out before we close the day?
Yeah, I've got the prayer about patience.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Oh Lord, I want patience, and I want it now.
I love it. That's cool. I'm glad that's on recording so I don't have to remember it, but that's cool. Molly, did you have anything to add? Thank you, George.
Yeah, I just want to thank you for inviting me to the hangout today, and I think your idea of this hangout to be positive, be patient, learn more about yourself, give yourself some more time during the day. I think you'll find it'll carry over into your personal and your business life.
Absolutely, and thank you very much. The basic fundamental concept is that when you polarize positively, in the positive, when you become positive, you can overcome everything, but the more important thing is that you're not dwelling in the negative. When you dwell in the negative, when you're thinking about things that are problems and you're attaching yourself to the problems, that's basically what the psychologists call carrying a whole lot of baggage. And when you carry that baggage long enough, you're going to get distressed, you're going to get depressed, you're going to get sick physically, you're going to develop diseases, you're going to have accidents and stuff like that. And all of that, all of the negative is because of our own thinking. Now, if you can wrap your brain around that, maybe you'll want to talk to us next week when we ask the question again, what is the positive? Thanks everybody for joining us. Good day for now.